All right, we are joined by Mr. Golf Hawaii. That's what I am giving you. We like to do official titles on this show. You are Mr. Golf Hawaii. I'm joined by Mark Rolfing. Obviously, golf PGA Tour in Hawaii in the news right now for a few different reasons. Obviously, the tour is starting this week up at Wailea at the Sony Open. There was no Kapalua event. I saw your tweet last week, or maybe it was earlier this week, that said that Kapalua is in magnificent condition. From what I gather, there's a lot to this story about the Kapalua situation. I wanted to ask you to explain it to me and to our viewers like I'm 8 years old. There's this thing on the internet called Explain It Like I'm 5. We're going to give our viewers a little bit of credit. Explain what happened with the whole Maui land and banana like we're 8 years old.
All right, I'll try to do that. You look like you're about 12, maybe just a little older than 8, but
31.
31. All right. It's been a very complicated situation. If you think about what Maui's been through, Dan, in the last 5 years, we had a big COVID, which everybody else had. But we also had the Lahaina wildfires in 2023, the worst ever, and now the worst drought ever, all in 5 years, which is an awful lot for a tiny island in the middle of the Pacific to endure. But having said that, we started becoming aware of what potentially was a water problem on Maui early in the year last year. It was more around the time of the Players' Championship when I first kind of started talking about it with everybody and said, hey, you guys, we need to keep our eye on this water situation. The real issue, in simple terms, is it is not a water problem. There is a lot of water. We have a watershed up on the West Maui Mountains at about 5,000 feet called the Pu'ukukui watershed. It rains 200 inches a year up there every year, has forever, and it's still raining 200 inches a year up there. The problem is the delivery system for the water, which is basically a trench and a series of ditches and switchbacks, comes about 11 miles down the mountain. That water delivery system is not functional right now. It was partially destroyed in a hurricane back in 2018, but has not been repaired by the landowner, and so it really is not able to deliver the water. And that's why other water sources like surface water along the ground has had to be used, and that is what is causing the problem. It's a problem between the landowner, which is Maui Land and Pineapple Company, and the owner of the golf courses, which are guaranteed the water, Tadashi Yanai. So it's not a water problem as much as a water delivery problem.
So this is what's interesting to me. So the system that distributes water on the island is privately owned?
It is. It's a water system. We're hearing, and the mayor told me the other day that he believes the county is going to take over the water system. We're having the state push for the water system. The owner of the golf course, I've heard, is willing to build a desalination plant, like willing to do all sorts of things. But the problem with that is it takes time to do that. And, we've got about half of the people right now on Maui that after the wildfire are saying to themselves, look, is it really the right use for our water to be irrigating a golf course as opposed to saving water for another fire? Because we've had a number of them. We have an average of about 5 a year. Because it is so dry and because a lot of the ground is not irrigated now. We have a lot of wildfires, so there's a lot of consideration going on here in a couple of different sides.
Give me the 30,000-foot view on Maui Land and Pineapple. What is that?
Maui Land and Pineapple owns 23,000 acres. Dan, I worked for them when I originally came. I started working in the cart barn at Kapalua in 1975. Became the assistant pro and slowly worked my way up. And that company ultimately sold off a number of its assets. The big two that they sold off was in 2007. They sold the golf courses to Mr. Tadashi Yanai, who owns Fast Retailing in Japan. I think he's the second or maybe the most richest man in Japan. Very nice guy. Everybody loves him. And he was guaranteed water. It was the same guarantee that we got when Ben Crenshaw and Bill Coore and I built the plantation course in 1989. We had to get a guarantee for water from Maui Land and Pine, which we got. That was in place all the way till 2007, and now is really the time that it's being questioned.
So we've all seen these pictures, right? I mean, I know the course closed for a while because it was hard to look at. I've played the Plantation course a number of times. It's one of my top 10 favorite experiences in golf. It's just so much fun. It was hard to look at those, but then it seemed to bounce back really quickly. And the golf course opened for public play, if I'm not mistaken, in November, 2 months before the tour was scheduled to come. What changed?
Well, really, what changed was a decision by the TY Corporation, Mr. Yanai, that owns the golf courses, to basically close and keep closed the Bay course. So they are allocated a certain amount of water for irrigation. It's a small amount, and it's simply not enough water to maintain both the courses at a good level. So they made the decision to close the Bay course, at least semi-permanently. That has been closed now for almost just a little more than 4 months, I guess. And it looks like it's going to be closed for quite a while. So all of the water is being diverted to the Plantation course. This is surface groundwater that's being used. That's the problem that some people are having with what is going on, whether or not, groundwater should be used for irrigation purposes. And so the Bay course is closed. I had Ben Crenshaw and Bill Coore here last week working on a number of different things, one of which is to try to reduce the size of the actual manageable turf situation there. It's a huge course. It's 435 acres, as you know.
It's one of the things that strikes you when you go there. It's just such a vast property.
Yeah, if you think about it, it's interesting because we built the Plantation course, and the next golf course that we built, the next one after that was Sand Hills, where we basically went and created a golf course, for less than $1 million. That's now top 10 in the world. And I don't think that Sand Hills has any more than probably 70 irrigated and managed turf areas. It's very, very small. We've got a couple of fairways that are close to 70 acres right now at the Plantation. So we're going to try to reduce that footprint a little.
Didn't there also used to be a village course?
Yeah, there was a village course. We had 54 holes back in the day. It was unbelievable. I remember a year where that golf course grossed, I think, $28 million. It was just an unbelievable golf machine, and everybody loved it. And it's kind of gotten to the point now where the question is, what is the golf future? Not only just here, but other parts of Maui, because the drought still continues on Maui. The two parties now are in a litigation. That is the problem. There's a litigation going on between Maui Land and Pine, which is the owner of the 23,000 acres, and the TY Corporation, which owns only the golf courses. And that litigation is not even scheduled to go to trial until March of 2027.
27.
27.
I fucking hate politics. I just got to tell you, and I hate that politics is coming in the way of sports, which are supposed to unify people. I don't like this situation.
No, I don't either. I will tell you, I've been working very closely with the governor. I'm quite close with him, with the mayor of Maui. We are trying to find every single solution that we can find here. I have asked the governor to kind of take charge and basically call the two guys up, the Maui Land and Pine guy and the TY guy, and say, fellas, let's get ourselves in a room. We're going to lock the door and we're going to start talking about this. And we're not unlocking that door and letting everybody out until we come up with a solution. We've got to do it, because if we don't, the long-term plan for the island of Maui itself is going to be very much in jeopardy. We're trying to figure out how to restore Lahaina as it is. That is an extremely difficult task. Now you couple that with a water situation like this, and you got some issues.
Yeah, it sounds like a mess giving birth to a mess. I'm going to move topics here to the other thing that I sort of wanted to talk to you about. Speaking of wildfires, I live in West Los Angeles. We had a horrific wildfire, in February. Nothing's really happened in the Palisades, but with wildfires, there's certain levels, right? Like of warnings, right? You get the green, you get the yellow, you get the red. I wanted to ask you, all of this talk of the PGA Tour getting out of Hawaii, what level of concern is it? Is it a red? Is
Oh,
is
yeah.
are it is a PGA Tour getting out of the Hawaii business?
I can't say that for sure. I hope not. You know, this week I'm at the Sony Open here. We've been at Wildlife since 1965. Just some unbelievable history here. But if you take a look at everything that's happened with the PGA Tour, this is not a red warning. This is a fire engine red warning. And really, the thing that's happened, Dan, if you think about it, not only does Maui have its set of issues, and so does the rest of the world, but the PGA Tour has really changed since Century got involved. They've been involved since 2017, and three things have really changed since then. The first one is the NFL playoffs have proliferated. There's way more games, way more slots being occupied, and you just simply cannot compete with the NFL playoffs now. The audiences are gigantic. We've got TGL, the Indoor Golf League, which was not even a possibility or thought of back at the time. That is in Florida. It's not very close to Hawaii. There's more and more players in that. Now they're talking about women. I don't know how much they're going to expand, but that has become a factor. And then you've got the DP World Tour, which has their three biggest events all right in a row in January, where McIlroy's playing and Fleetwood's playing and Lowry's playing and a lot of the Europeans are playing. So, having said that, I really think the likelihood of the PGA Tour being out in Hawaii going against those three things that have really turned on them is going to be difficult because all of that has made it so much more expensive to produce tournaments out here. It's up probably almost 50% over last year.
Why is it more expensive to produce the tournament?
Because of shipping costs and tariffs and you name it, just a lot of things. The round trip on the equipment to come to Hawaii, round trip by barge, is almost 5 weeks. So that's like having a 5 week tour that you're paying for, but it's only one tournament. And if you look at the Hawaii situation, from when I was in charge of the tourism authority and a lot of stuff here, which I'm not anymore, we had 11 televised events. We had so many televised golf tournaments here, PGA Tour events, skins games, grand slams of golf, all that kind of stuff. We had a full-time set of equipment that was on the island. We had hula bowls, we had pro bowls, you name it. We've gone from 11 televised events down to 3. We have 3 left, and we could be in danger of more. So we've got to really put our nose to the grindstone and come up with some options here. And I'm just not sure January is the most feasible option.
So my last question for you, I saw you retweeted Brendan Porath's excellent article about, the sort of the spirit of golf in Hawaii and how everyone, loves watching the Century. What will be lost if we lose these 2 tournaments?
Arnold Palmer. That's the number one thing I think of, and him staying here at the Kahala Hilton, sitting out on a lawn chair by the pool and talking to every single person that came by every day, all day. He was the heart and soul of Hawaii. I think of Lee Trevino and Ted Makalena. I'm the godparents of the 2 Trevino children and very close to Lee, and he still comes to Hawaii. He's coming out here this coming week. The people that have played in this tournament and love this tournament for what it is keep going on and on. The decades go on, and Jordan Spieth still loves it here. Colin Morikawa still loves it here. Tony Finau still loves it here. Guys love it, and I really feel like something is going to be missed if we don't figure this out. We played in the fall here for a long time, Dan, and it worked out just fine. And maybe that's a solution to consider here, or maybe after the Super Bowl, we know there's going to be less West Coast events at the beginning of the year, so let's accommodate it and figure out what works for everybody.
I couldn't agree more. I'm a West Coast guy. I've been going to Hawaii my whole life. Been lucky. I love that place. My parents are actually on the Big Island right now. It's near and dear to my heart, and I completely agree with you. Something will be lost if the PGA Tour no longer has this little Hawaii swing to open the season. I want to thank you so much, Mark, for the time. I know it's a busy week with you with the Sony Open. We'll be locked into the action this week, and thank you so much for joining the show.
All right. Thanks for having me, Dan.